Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of Adorned with Dignity. Today we're on day 23 and we're going to be talking about the difference between wigs of previous generations and the contemporary wigs of today. So it states that in the previous lessons we learned about the history of the origin of wearing shaitels in public. It is more important to note that the shaitels women wore in previous generations did not come close to the shaitels worn today in style, natural look, and sleekness. Rabbanim in today's times have clearly confirmed this. In the Pasuk Hador, Harav Shmuel Halevi Wasner stated, the wigs that were worn approximately 60 years ago, even in the more modernized country of Vienna, were clearly recognizable from a distance. It was clear that it wasn't the woman's own hair, since those wigs did not have the natural characteristics of hair. Yet the wigs of today look just like natural hair. He then added, they incite the Yetzirah even more than natural hair, and there would be no pasuk in previous generations who would be able to find any type of leniency to permit such a shaitel. So, it's true. The shaitels of today are extremely different from the shaitels of yesteryear. And some of them make natural hair. You don't even want to look at your natural hair when you see the styles of some of these shaitels. I think that what's even more important to point out, because a lot of people always rely on these leniencies that were allowed in these great Rabbanim who allowed the use of and permitted the use of shaitels, but they did it with different circumstances presented to them. So this is almost like that saying in the Torah that Noah was righteous in his generation. There was an answer built upon what was going on in that generation. But also, they presented the Rabbanim with the look of a wig that clearly was not all that attractive. So if you want to rely on the leniency, you have to go back to what the circumstances actually were. What was going on in that generation, right? What was the look of it? What was the actual look and the consistency of the shaitel? If you were to present that, the shaitel of today to that same Rabbanim, you have to be honest and ask yourself, do you think you'd come out with the same answer? And the answer is probably going to be for sure not. But that's a very tough question that I think many people either are not really thinking about. I don't know if it's conscious in their mind. They just rely on this blanket, it's permitted and that's it. But again, what were the circumstances behind the heter? So we're going to go into a few of the words of Rabbanim. Now, these are not the words of the author, but these are the words of Rabbanim, which she's quoting. And it says, Harav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach Shlitas declared, why are women rationalizing that women in previous generations wore wigs? Those wigs look like straw. Today they come to me and I don't even know the difference between the wig and the hair. This is true, and we know stories. There's a lot of people that know stories, and it's probably happened to people personally who have experienced. I can attest myself. I know women who wore shaitels, and I didn't know that it was a shaitel because it looks so natural. It says Harav Yosef Shlomo Elisheva Shlita was distraught about the new style of natural-looking shaitels before his passing, and he declared, the dispute about if a shaitel is permissible applied to the wigs of previous generations, which were short and stiff, and the hairs did not move from their place. But the natural-looking wig shaitels incite the Yetzirah just like hair. Who can permit wearing such a shaitel, which is erva? And Harav Shlomo Schwadron explained, women are unaware that the permissibility of wearing a shaitel was a debated issue among the paskim. Indeed, there are over 24 Gedolai HaPaskim who forbade it. And even for those who go according to the opinions of the paskim who permitted it, do they think that these Rabbanim permitted a woman to wear a shaitel that doesn't even look like a wig? For this, there is no heter in the world. For this reason, Gedolim have issued the following kol koreh regarding natural-looking shaitels. Since our communities, women have begun wearing shaitels. Since in our communities, women have begun wearing shaitels that cause sin, just like hair, because they look like natural hair, we feel obligated to let people know the view of the Holy Torah. This is a sort, even in communities where they follow the heter of wearing a shaitel. It didn't come into question to allow such type of wigs which are worn today. Indeed, one misdeed leads to another. And this was signed by Rabbanim, among them the Rabbanim from Gur, Vishnitz, Erloi, Biala, Lilov, and Spinka. So, this is going to be, I think, probably the biggest trial in all of Shemaim, right? This is going to be the biggest thing that they take up in the Beit Din of Shemaim. This is such a debated issue, and there is a correlation, really, between what's going on with the level of modesty in women in this generation and the low level that we find ourselves. There is a correlation. When the modesty of the woman falls, so does the level of Klal Yisrael, right? We didn't even see the problems within the community, so many people walking away and all these things happening the way we see them now. But that's a side issue. To stick to the point of this chapter, they're clearly putting out an argument that's very convincing, which is that if you're going to rely on the leniency given by a particular Rav who permitted such the wearing of sheitel, permitted such a observance, you have to go back to the circumstances. We're talking about either people who were extremely traumatized, and even those people who were extremely traumatized, they presented the sheitel that did not look even close to today's sheitel. They did not even look close to today's sheitel. So if we were to go back to those same Rabbanim, with the circumstances we have today, with the fact that really no one is chasing us and persecuting us, at least in America, for wearing a scarf on your head. And I happen to wear a scarf in a place that's very secular. So, Baruch Hashem, no one's chasing us here. And if you're privileged to live in Eretz Israel, but if you're in Hutzlars, many places in Hutzlar, for the majority of Yidden who are out still in Hutzlars, we're not being persecuted per se for observing this mitzvah. So if we were to go to Rabbanim with the circumstances we have today, with the look of the sheitels we have today, you have to ask yourself an honest question. Do you really think that would be permitted? That's one thing. But the truth is we are where we are now. And the question is, how do we get to a place where we're rising and growing and growing? Again, it's a very, very hot topic. It's a very hot topic. But at one point, I don't believe that all is lost. I don't believe that we've come to such a point where we can't even talk about the amass anymore. It's one thing to do the amass. But I refuse to believe that we've fallen to such a level that we can't even talk about the amass, and that we can't greet each other in love about this issue. Very hot topic. I promise you it'll get hotter. It'll get hotter. But I don't know that it has to be. I don't know that it has to be that way. I think if we go into all things that make us feel uncomfortable with an open mind, we're going to find that from this place we can grow. We can grow into that observance that every single person wants to get to, because every person wants to come close to a Kadosh Baruch Hu, everybody. And the problem in this generation is finding the true path. That's the challenge of this generation. So I hope with Hashem's help that there will be a clear light, a clear path, and there'll be one of unity, and that we will find many of our sisters on that path. So Hashem should help us, and I pray that Mashiach will be here soon, so he can tell us, where to go, what to do, as far as what's the true MS here. Give the shiur, because I think there's so much debate. But that's it for today, and I hope we'll all be together again soon. B'ezrat Hashem.